Hey, what's up, everybody? Brett Griffin. You're listening to episode number 299, Freddie, of Door Bumper Clear. We're coming straight out of a wet New Hampshire, and we got about three-quarters of the gang here.
Yeah, what's up? Freddie Kraft, spotter for Bubba Wallace, Chandler Smith this week. I had Doug Kobe in the modified race. Pretty solid week for me.
Fast?
Weekend.
You were fast for a change.
Yeah, like I actually had 3 top 10s in 2 seconds this weekend, so that was good for me. But what's up, Casey?
Yes, I noticed your average finish for all three races really went up this weekend. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Casey Vogt here. Unfortunately, TJ is still a little bit under the weather, so thinking about him, but I know he'll be back next week with plenty to talk about.
He'll be back to annoy us soon enough.
I mean, he's already doing it enough via text.
Yeah,
so.
he didn't go to the racetrack this weekend. Obviously, Brian Kozlowski filled in for his brother, Brad, to spot. I had 2 DNFs, Freddie, on I-77 yesterday.
You did?
I hit a deer at exit 30 going 18 miles an hour, and it somehow or another just managed to come through my radiator. And then I borrowed my daughter's car to go downtown Charlotte, and I blew her car up on I-77, so it's at the dealership getting fixed. And very expensive Monday for me.
I saw you roll up in Gramps' car, and I was just happy to see it made it because you texted me yesterday about those wrecks, and I said, listen, if you need a car, I can drop John's car off, or you can have my truck or something. And you're like, no, I think I got Gramps' car, and hopefully it makes it to the studio tomorrow. So when you come rolling through the gate, I was pretty impressed.
In addition to a cluster of a Monday, I got to add a 3-hour drive to commute to go get Gramps' car in South Carolina to bring it home. But thank goodness that was an option because I don't have rental car coverage in my insurance, which I did not know. So for those of you with insurance coverage like mine, where you pay out the butt and you need a rental car, they're not going to pay for it.
Megan,
I don't have a backup car.
You should talk to Megan's guy. Megan had a rental car when she recently destroyed her Jeep, and she had a rental car for a little while. But yeah, New Hampshire was definitely wet. I will give it that. I ran into rain all week. I went to Stafford for the SRX race, which was a bunch of fun. I had a blast over there. Obviously, you might have seen me wandering around with a beer in my hand on pit road.
Was it because of who won?
Probably
also?
Frowned upon. Yeah, I mean, he could have done without us. We had maybe I held the stupid end of the toe boards. Have you ever seen toe boards go over the wall? They check, they lay these boards up against the front tires and check the front toe. And if you're on the smart end, that means you're reading the end of the tape measure. That's that matters. And if not, you're just holding the tape measure. So even though I might have partook in some heavy alcohol drinking before the race, I was smart enough at that point to know that I don't need to be reading the tape measure. I'll just hold it. But yeah, he had some contact, and he was worried that the toe was knocked out, so they kind of let us check it before they worked on it. But
tell me about the SRX experience. I was surprised that Tony, and look, I realized that there are a lot of things in play. He went head-to-head with his own racetrack. A 9 o'clock start, which is obviously late. 400,000 people watched on ESPN. Awesome to see live racing back on ESPN, especially on a Thursday night. But tell me about the environment because the place was packed.
I mean, I'm telling. I've been to I hadn't been back to Stafford in a long time. I figured out it was like 2010, but that was obviously the biggest crowd I've ever seen there. The environment was unbelievable. The drivers kind of had their own. The SRX drivers have their own pit area, like that's kind of secluded from the weekly series racing. But there's fans walking around there with their own passes, similar to you see at a Cup race. They have your typical like hot pass, VIP passes. But then they brought all the drivers over. I think there was a stage set up in the fan zone, or where you could get to with just a regular ticket, I assume. And they brought 3 or 4 drivers up at a time and did a full Q&A where each driver probably spent 15, 20 minutes up there just answering questions, talking about what they expect, if they've been to Stafford before, just the history of Stafford and just the environment. Like there's nowhere that you can go to. You can't go to a Cup race and get that right now. You might get lucky and your driver's doing an appearance at a booth out front in the midway or something like that. But these guys were all mandatory. Everyone that was there, whether it was Tony Stewart to Paul Tracy to, obviously Clint and Denny and Brad and Kevin were there. It was just phenomenal access, I thought, and they went down, were taking pictures. I wasn't over there during the Q&A, but I heard Clinton was out in the crowd wandering around, which is not hard to believe. But yeah, the event itself was phenomenal. They lined up all the cars on the front stretch, and the fans were out there screaming and yelling at them.
I'm gonna ask you one thing: is 12 cars enough cars to keep it entertaining?
I think so. Obviously you could add more, and I think that they need to figure out what their identity is, because I don't think. Not that obviously Denny's great, but if it's almost not fair. in my opinion. You know, like you got a guy like Denny Hamlin, a guy like Kevin Harvick, Brad, that are out there kind of top of their game. Denny's probably in his prime right now, and it showed. You know what I mean? You got him out there, and he was the class of the field. Clint was really good. Newman was really good towards the end of the race.
Didn't Harvick wreck like 3 times and then
Harvick
pulled in?
he
So
struggled a little bit.
you never really know.
But it's still you got Denny Hamlin against Paul Tracy. You know what I mean? Like I think that if you're gonna go,
Paul Tracy can't even beat Paul Tracy.
So I think I was talking about this with Herm the other day, and it's like, what is your identity? Do you want to be the cool series? And what I think they're missing a little bit, which I thought was great a couple years ago, and it's actually going to happen this week. The local guy. We've seen Doug Coby go win that race a couple years ago. Luke Fenhouse won at Slinger. The local guy is more relatable to that Paul Tracy. I think that's a more level playing field across the series. But yeah, Danny got out front and I felt like he was probably just toying with him.
I guess looking at it, it's like hearing you describe it. It's like a semi-IROC series because you do have a very high caliber level of drivers that are in the middle of their careers, and then you kind of have that senior PGA feel that you're going for with guys like Tony, Paul Tracy, Bobby Labonte, Schrader. I mean, they're obviously on the backside of their careers and trying not to race in some of the most highly competitive series like the Cup Series. But I thought it was super nostalgic, huge fan of what they're doing, and cool to see it on ESPN. But I was just curious how it was walking around because I want to get to one of the races. Obviously, Connecticut is not really within reach, especially when I don't have a car. But hopefully one of these races I'll be able to get to. It was cool to see Clint back up front. I knew going into that race he was going to drive as hard as he could possibly drive because his competitive juices haven't been flowing in a while. And we all know how much he hates to lose. I mean, look, I won the All-Star Open with him 1,000,000 times. So I knew that was going to be his mindset going in is I got to win. And I was watching him drive it in so deep. I was like, this is typical Clint Boyer.
It was really funny. So I was with Doug most of the day, Kobe. And he's a good friend of mine. I obviously spotted for him on Saturday in the modified race. And so first he got commandeered. Denny dragged him on his golf cart and took him off to his bus to pick his brain about the track. Wheels and Doug have also known each other a long time. So they were in there, talking about it. So then on the grid, I introduced Doug to Clint. And Clint's like, hey, what do you got? You got tips. And Doug's like, here, man, listen, the only tip I can give you is just drive the shit out of it. He's like, because if you don't drive the shit out of it in a heat race, you're going to end up starting in the back and you're never going to be able to get to the front, yada, yada, yada. So Clint drives the shit out of it. Then after the race, I see Clint, because I'm hauling ass because it started to rain, obviously. So I'm hauling ass back to Denny's bus to try to escape the rain for a minute. And it's like, he's like, where's that Kobe at? He's like, I burned the brakes off this son of a bitch with 20 to go driving the shit out of it like he told me to. So he said, I guess at the end, because he was right there with Denny for most of it, and then he kind of faded, I guess, when the brakes started going away. But I thought it was funny that he's like, where's that Kobe at? I'm going to find him.
Yeah, he must have had the H. Scott brakes from back in the day on that thing.
You have an interesting point, though. Tony essentially going against himself when it comes to viewership with the... Obviously, Eldora going on at the same time.
Eldora million, not just Eldora. Like one of the biggest sprint car races of all time, obviously the biggest purse of all time. And both started, late. I mean, that sprint car race, I kind of thought it was a blessing for Tony when the SRX race ended a little early so people could flip over. But I'm just curious, Casey, what the ratings do this week. And obviously, SRX has got to go back to the same track at Stafford because of the floodings in Vermont, which is unfortunate for those guys. But I just felt like the ratings, if they started at 7:30 and weren't head-to-head with Eldora Million, they'd have been better than that.
Yeah, and it's I don't know who this deal with the Thunder Road. I feel awful for these guys because obviously it's completely out of their control. It sounds like the facility is ready to go. If it sounds like the facility's fine, ready to go. The problem is, and I'm not familiar with the area. Some of the guys, Dave Rogers, that works at 2311, was telling me about it. My buddy Scott Tapley's up there sending me pictures of the roads just completely washed out underwater, the road that he would normally take to get there. But I go back and look, and a lot of people that may not be familiar with Thunder Road, they just built a brand new control tower just for this race.
Oh, wow.
They built, they've obviously spent upwards of $150,000 in advertising for this race. out the window. They had to lay out a fee to get the race. That's now out the window.
Sanctioning body fee, yeah.
Now everybody's like, oh, it's great that they're getting, everybody's getting a refund. Well, guess who's giving the refund? The
track.
racetrack. So it's a big hit to them, and I'm hoping obviously that they get a race date next year again, or something to work out in the future where they kind of recoup some of this. But just a heartbreak for them, and I don't, obviously, Stafford, they're already there. It's kind of logistically easy for them to just kind of sit there, work on the cars, get ready. They got a good deal with Ryan Preece going this week. But, yeah.
I think it was also a win how many people came from that race to New Hampshire that weekend. The number of people I met who said they went, say they saw Harvick, they saw Denny. I mean, that's pretty cool when you make a full weekend of it on top of the modified race, too, which I know, Freddie, you talked about a little bit. Really, really well done, I would say, when it comes to Northeast. And
it's not far. We went, obviously, that's Megan's home track. We went up to Connecticut a couple days early, and it's only like 2.5, 3 hour drive from the racetrack, from Stafford to Loudon. So it lends itself to a good lead into the weekend. But
we need to move on from SRX. But one more thing, NASCAR raced at Eldora up until the point that Tony started SRX, and when Tony started SRX, the Truck Series stopped going to Eldora.
That was a coincidence?
I don't think it was a coincidence. I mean, we talked about it on here when it happened, and we foresaw it coming. We saw NASCAR and Eldora unfollow each other on social media prior to it being announced that they
blocked each other.
That they were. I don't know. I would have. I would have.
Probably on Brett's list.
But my point is this: we go to a lot of really cool racetracks. Obviously, the Richmonds, the Martinsvilles, et cetera. I would love to see us look at partnering with SRX and putting Tony and NASCAR, Love Fest back together. Have them open the weekend on Thursday night, trucks on Friday night, Xfinity Saturday night, Cup Sunday night. Like, what an amazing weekend. And I am a bigger fan of SRX, feeling more like the senior PGA. I don't mind a NASCAR guy in there, too. Obviously, by racing on Thursday night, you open the door for these current NASCAR drivers to be able to go do it. But to your point, and I know you've a marketing guru, but they do lack a little bit of identity. Yeah. I think you're right.
I mean, it's obviously it draws a crowd. Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, them guys are bringing people and putting asses in the seats. But at the same time, then they're just going to go out there and probably dominate.
Yeah. But so would Bill Elliott and Bobby Labonte and Ken Schrader.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's got to be. I feel like you got to go one or the other. Like you can't.
Yeah.
For the racing product itself, you can't really have a mix of both.
Yeah.
But yeah, New Hampshire. Obviously, Martin Truex kicked our asses all day yesterday. Actually, both JGR cars dominated both races this weekend. John Hunter was phenomenal on Saturday. Martin phenomenal on Sunday.
Did you have anything for John Hunter at all on Saturday with Chandler? Because obviously Chandler started on the pole, was running top four most of the race. Obviously had some good restarts there. Did you have anything for him?
I don't think so. I think we were a second or third place car. I thought it was us. The 20 and the 00 were the kind of the class of the field. The 8 was pretty good a lot of the race. But 20 was kind of lights out. If we could have got out, we could never get out in front of him. We got out in front of one restart, and he kind of got right around us on the restart. If we could have got out front and maybe, got in pace. Because after short run speed, we didn't have anything for him. After about 20 laps or so, we would all run the same lap time, and we would all maintain pretty much the same gap, if I felt like anyway. So I don't know if we could get a gap out front and maybe him get in traffic and have to run us down at some point, but he was lights out. When we had that deal where the guys flipped the stage and ended up, we kind of all restarted mid-pack. We all were going to drive back to where the top three were, but John Hunter got straight to the lead again. So I think he was clearly the class of the field, and same thing with Martin on Sunday or Monday, I guess. And then the only other one, I seen a note here that they wanted to mention the modified race, which obviously I think is the best race in the world. It's a phenomenal race. It was a terrible finish. We lost by a bumper. I don't want to talk about it.
I mean, I kind of brought it up for a reason earlier, so I know you skipped that one. But
it's actually funny because I like I talked about me and Doug being really good friends. I used to spot for him randomly. Like I worked for one team mostly, but then there would obviously be these one-off races, different series, different tracks. So I would always kind of get hooked up randomly with Doug once or twice a year. And we had I think it was probably a 12-year stretch of DNFs. We would lead races. I think there was one race we finished, we got disqualified. And then this was the first time we finished a race probably since like 2010, 11, something like that. So that was.
I'm surprised he keeps having you back.
He fired me. He actually fired me.
I don't blame him.
He was the first person to ever fire me from spotting. And then like Tommy Ball, you guys Tommy Baldo now. So I don't think Tommy gave him an option. And luckily we made it work this week. But yeah, so that was cool to do that again. Almost won. But yeah, so a couple seconds on Saturday.
Did y'all take one tire at any point?
No, we did 4. The Brett spotted a race for Doug, and he did 1 tire and 3 tires, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I was like, my radio's f***ed up. They're talking about doing 1 tire. You can't put 1 tire on a race car.
He's looking at me. He's like, "What's going on?" Because like the modified series, they'll give them 4 tires, but they don't specify what they are. So a lot of times they'll put 3 tires on, not change the left front, and then come back later for a right rear or vice versa or whatever. So it was fun. We were kind of racing darkness. We were leading with 20 to go, and it was kind of getting dark. And I'm like, I can't see shit. Throw the checker. I'm yelling at the official up there, but they didn't believe me.
I mean, you were also like 5 minutes out from a huge torrential downpour, so
Yeah.
I'm impressed you guys got that in.
It was a lot of rain this week. That deal on Saturday rained real hard. Then Sunday, obviously, it rained all day. I seen some people complaining that they called the race. It rained all day where I was at. I was in Concord, and it rained all day. So I don't know what happened. We're over by the racetrack, but
We wouldn't have gotten a window in time. I think at 2:30.
Oh, you were the one tweeting about the windows, Casey.
I see
Oh,
Casey.
it was a joke.
Damn, Casey, getting feisty. Brett's been rubbing off on you.
Well,
You were tweeting how big that window was. I was like, wow.
I'll tell you who did not have a good weekend.
I think I can guess, but you go
Go ahead.
first.
Who you got?
Aric Almirola.
Well, no, yes. He did not have a good week. Kyle Busch did not have a good weekend.
Kyle Busch had a bad weekend.
Kyle Busch wrecked every time he hit the racetrack. Practice, qualifying, and then like super early in the race. I don't know what they had going on there, but I seen Derek had everybody out to the camper I went out to the camper too. First, Hirschman ate 37 lobsters.
Yeah, I
and
would hate to feed
that
Hirsch.
was only part of the 5,000 lobsters that they had. But the whole team went out there, so maybe they have a shellfish allergy or something because they did not have a good weekend after that.
Yeah, they might want to move camp spots next year. Or maybe go out to eat, try something. Definitely change up the routine.
Shout out! I always got to give a shout out to. I always call her Derek's cousin, Megan. She is not Derek's cousin, but her name is Megan, and she beat us all shotgunning beers again. And I know they listen to the podcast, so I have to always give her.
She
that
legit. She legit.
Dude, first of all, she takes the can, bites a fucking hole in it,
That's not safe.
bites the hole in it.
She's already scared the competition off.
and then just shotguns a beer and beats every guy standing.
We
there.
need a video of this.
Oh, I'm sure there's got to be a video of it somewhere.
Her and Caitlin would
I
be
knew
a
she was
great
really fast,
competition.
so we were pretty close at the finish line, and they called me for jumping the start. So I knew I had to do it. You know, that's
Yeah.
just you can't just
She
lose.
bites a hole
Oh,
in the
she
can.
bites
Is she
a hole.
like a Marine or something?
So Derek told me she always I've
Does
met
she
her,
have
I've
teeth?
met her probably 5 years ago and she's done this every year. It's like a party now that we do. It's like a party
I think
trick.
she does it every week.
So as of last year, she had to change sides because she wore her tooth out on this left side. You know, it's like the little fang tooth. So she wore the left side out, so she had to switch over to the right side now. So that's
God
kind of the party that.
Bless America.
Listen, it's that
mean-
deal's fun.
I don't even know what to say.
It's a blast.
Well-
Derek's family's out there. Everybody's out there.
Maybe she
but-
bit Kyle Busch while he was out there.
something, maybe.
Maybe that's why he had a bad weekend.
Speaking of
Something
drivers who ended up with a less than stellar finish, how about Almirola having probably the best run of the year?
So I don't think he was going to beat Truex, but crazier things have happened if Truex gets a penalty or something. He was easily a top 3 or 4 car.
Yeah.
But I didn't. So obviously we see him wreck. I see the wheels come off. Did I go back now? Look at Twitter. I don't know if you were watching at this point, but did he ask if the wheel was loose?
Well, the crew chief, apparently, because the crew chief told him it was tight. And then after the wreck, the crew chief told him it was loose. So I know there was a lot of people on social media MFing his crew chief. But you have to realize where Eric's at in his career. There's a lot of gossip going around that he's hanging the helmet up at the end of the year. And this is a chance for him to win, make the playoff, kind of have an awesome, mid-season moment to get you into the playoffs. And man, that was heartbreaking. I mean, to wreck from the lead. And here's the thing, too. It's a 2-tire stop. It's not a 4-tire stop.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to go in there, hit your marks, be smooth, get in and out without a problem. And to have one loose on a 2-tire stop, man, that makes it even more frustrating for everybody. And I listen, I have wrecked race cars. I have said clear when you're not clear. I have given bad information. I have wrecked race cars, and I couldn't sleep for days. I mean, you literally feel like a piece of shit for days. I can't imagine unless there was a mechanical failure with the gun. I can't. Man, that rear tire changer, I promise you, he wanted to cover himself up with a blanket on the plane and not look at anybody, not talk to anybody. And look, man, it's not the end of the world. You'll get another chance to change tires. But that's hard to swallow in our sport.
Yeah, and you talk about 2 tire stops. We'll touch on Aric. That's his best racetrack. That was his best opportunity to probably get in the playoffs. You know, he's got, obviously not a stellar road course racer. Got a couple road courses coming up.
He's good at Richmond.
Plate racing.
Yeah.
And then Richmond is another one for him. But this was his, he won here a couple years ago. This was going to be his best chance. But then you talk about 2 tire stops. We see another issue later where I don't know if I seen people this morning telling me I needed to call him what an idiot. If it's Blaney, if this is on Blaney or the crew chief, but they do a 2 tire stop on the 12, who's running second all day, he's probably the second best car, and they don't give the right front changer a chance to get around the car, and he takes off with the guy sitting there like it's an IndyCar stop, and that's a penalty. He ran over the hose, and that's running over. So I don't know if Ryan just took off in the jack drop or if they sent him, but it's just, that's obviously no good, and it ruined their day also. So 2 tire stops, and there was a lot of pit road problems yesterday. I think the 20 had a loose wheel. There was a lot of penalties. It just seemed like guys, and I don't know if we're getting down to it, where guys are pressure or pressing a little bit too much or whatnot. But yeah, there was a bunch of issues yesterday.
So, Freddie, they showed William Byron, who also had a problem on pit road. He came in, he did his stop, and when he pulled out of his stall, he made contact with Justin Haley. And at that point, and William was fast. He was certainly in the top 3 or 4. After that, we never saw him again. And I think this is something that somebody's got to accept big responsibility for. It's either on the crew chief or it's on the spotter. Now, I've spotted this both ways. I've spotted this with Jeff Burton, who only wanted me to call pit road. And I'm going to tell all you crew chiefs something. I can see more than you can see. Despite what you think, you're standing on the pit box, you want to call him in and out, I get it. But the spotter can see more than the crew chief in almost every single scenario. And Jeff Burton realized that, and he would only let the spotter call him in and out of his pit box, okay? Now, in this particular scenario, I don't know who called him out, all right? But the spotter has got to be doing one thing on Channel 2 if he's not the one calling him out. He's got to be telling him, hey, Justin Haley's coming around, be careful right here, to at least put the crew chief in queue. If that happened, it puts it even more on the crew chief, right? But the spotter, even if he's not spotting, he has a chance to help, right? But it is on the crew chief. It is on whoever is talking when William Byron leaves that pit box. I'm going to tell you something. You can't win championships making these mistakes. That's a very, very simple mistake. But if you're at Phoenix and you do that and you're in the Final Four and it's the last stop of the day or maybe even the first stop of the day because you run a risk of tearing your nose up, you can't have these screw-ups, and we've all done it. I mean, listen, I've torn up fast race cars on pit road or watched, crew chiefs and drivers screw them up. I've never personally wrecked a car on pit road, but they have got to clean that up. You can't have this happen.
Yeah, and like you said, you call it, like I call it anyway, if I'm not 90% of the time the crew chief's going to call them in and out of the box, we get them 10 away, crew chief counts them down, gets them out, and then as soon as they get out, we take over again. But to your point, when I would call them in, the guy's sitting there on Channel 2. I'm calling the car that's coming around us or, close to us. Same thing, 10 away, 5 away. So now you have a countdown in your head of I can release this guy, I can't release him, whatever it is. But, and sometimes sometimes you get lost. So, and sometimes it's, you're so focused on what you got going on in your car, you kind of lose track of the guys that are around you, especially it didn't look like Justin wasn't directly in front of them. He was
2 stalls past.
2 stalls past.
Yeah.
So you don't, maybe that doesn't trigger you right away, but like to your point, and that's Justin did nothing wrong. Justin's getting in his pit box. That's solely on the 24. Now, if Justin chooses to help or do something differently, that's on Justin, but in that situation, the responsibility is of the crew chief and the team of the 24 to get him out without running into Justin. So
the crew chief only ever really says one of 2 things on exit: go, go, go all the way, or go, go, go 1 lane.
Yeah,
you're really not. I mean, you have the ability to quote go on the jack because you're standing, at the pit box, but we can see the car fall. Like I when I look back and at the time of my career, I was just like, man, this is driver preference. Jeff wants me talking. But as that season went on, because Jeff was the first guy I ever spotted for that said, I don't want the crew chief talking to me on pit road. I want you getting me in. I want you getting me out. And after you've done a few races, you're like, I should have been doing this for everybody because I can see more than they can see.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I'm just saying that teams have got to clean that up. You got to figure your communication out because that's not an execution issue. That's a communication issue.
Yeah. One more thing before we move off of pit road and pitting. Obviously, I'm hypersensitive to the guys around us in the point standings. And the 99 car yesterday probably caught the break of a lifetime because he ran, I don't even know how long he ran. I don't even know. I think our fuel window was 80-something laps. He stayed out. I think he had a bad pit stop, and he was kind of trapped in the back. And we all kind of split in the middle, like a 40, 50 lap run, and we're going to go the rest of the way. He ran like 80-something laps, almost 90 laps it felt like, and caught a caution. If he had to have pit under green, he would have easily been probably 2 laps down because he was almost getting lapped. Then they were going to come back around and lap him at least another time. That would have put him probably, I would say, mid to late 20s in a finishing order if he doesn't get laps back at the end there. But instead he catches a caution right before he's got to pit, comes down pit road, ends up finishing 15th, probably saves himself 10 points. And now instead of being 10 or 15 points behind the cut line, now he's sitting there, I think, 1 or 2 behind us. So, that's the little things in the race to look for, especially with these guys around the bubble of us, the 34 and the 99 with maybe AJ's right there too, I think. Those are the little things in the race that make a big deal when it comes time for Daytona.
And as much as we pull for our own team at various points during the race, it's really easy to pull even more so against another team because you're literally going, take yourself out of this. I don't have to worry about you if you screw this up right here. So, like, it's a lot of emotions.
I made a point to say, and I never said why. We were kind of getting racy around some lap cars, and we're running somebody down. I made a point to tell Bubba during that run, I'm like, we can't have a caution here. Because I knew that if he pits under green, it's going to bury him for the race. To your point, I'm watching the end of the first stage, and Larson's running the 34 down for 10th at the stage, and I'm like,
get that point.
Come on, Kyle, go, let's go. And he did. He lost it by a bumper. But you find yourself like you're just hypersensitive to those cars that you're racing, and that's our season right now. Is why really what goes on. Obviously, if we can just win a race, we're in. But right now, that's what I'm focused on is the 99, the 34, the 16, them guys, and what's going on with their race in accordance to ours.
Yeah, one more thing I really want to get your thoughts on, just because it's been such a big headline this week. How about Busch Beer leaving SHR and moving to Trackhouse with Ross this year or next year?
Ross Chastain's done a lot of really good things in the last 3 to 4 years of his career. I mean, when you look at he was left homeless when Chip Ganassi shut the doors on his Xfinity car after that DC Solar debacle, and his only opportunity right then was Johnny Davis Motorsports and Colleague Racing. Nutrient Solutions, Elliott Sadler played a big part in picking him up, putting him in a fast car, goes out, contends to win, and obviously ends up in a Cup car. Here's the big thing about this one, Freddie. Not only did you take one of the bigger, most prominent sponsors in NASCAR, from a super team with like Stewart-Haas Racing and Stewart-Haas Racing, you take them from a Kevin Harvick. This puts Ross in a different world than he's ever been in his career. This guy has had to fight tooth and nail every single week to be able to survive in this sport. And I don't know the terms of this deal. If they announce it, I'm sorry I missed it. But I do know that Busch Light, whatever's on this car, they didn't go out and sign him to a 1-year deal. You're talking a 4 or 5 year deal for the sponsorship. I would assume you lock Ross in for at least 3 years of that. I'm curious, and I don't want to go off on a rabbit hole here. I'm curious to see what happens with the sport, though, because if I'm a driver right now and I sign a 1-year deal, I feel pretty good about it compared to where I've ever been in my career because we think that TV money may be about to pour into these race teams. And the last thing you want to do as a driver from a business perspective is go lock into a 4 or 5 year deal and then TV end up giving these owners a bunch of money and you're sitting here on a base salary, that people were making in the 80s versus you could have been making what guys were making in the 2000s. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole at this particular time, but this deal for him is massive in terms of security. He's never had it.
Yeah, for sure. And you see all the momentum in the world right now is behind Trackhouse. You've seen they go out and win with the Project 91 car. We see their at-track presence is just kind of blowing up behind their haulers. I mean, they've got live music seemingly every week. Just there's a lot of momentum over there. They're a very attractive team. I hate to say it, at the same time, it's the exact opposite for the team that this sponsor just left. Stewart-Haas, like, what is this? Are you starting to look at the panic button here? I mean, you're losing your flagship driver. You just now lost your flagship sponsor. You're going into next year with an unknown in Aric Almirola, whether he's coming back or not, and who's going to replace him. There's no real A driver over there. I mean, Josh Berry could step in and surprise us, but
you can't lean on him to be the A driver.
No, and that's what I'm saying. It's not fair to expect that from him. So where does this leave Stewart-Haas Racing right now?
I think the biggest thing they've got to do is get their cars faster. I think that's where it starts. I mean, when you look at, and we've talked about this on here before, I mean, Hendrick Motorsports went from 4 All-Stars to Bowman, Byron, Chase Elliott, and whoever the hell else was even over there at the time. And we're like, man, they're screwed. Like, if Stewart-Haas, the driver lineup is less important than the speed in the cars. And you've got to have a driver lineup to attract sponsors and be competitive and execute. Yes, 100%. They're the fighter pilot. But you also got to have a damn good fighter jet. And right now, for whatever reason, they're off on a lot of places, especially the mile and a half. Fords in general are. But I know personally the depth of resources at Stewart-Haas. They will be back. Like, this is just a cycle. They're not turning into Roush. And I don't mean that in a bad way. There was a point in life where Roush had 5 Cup teams, and 4 of the 5 were freaking amazing. And now they're down to 2. They had 4 or 5 Xfinity teams at the time. They were amazing. Now they're down to 0. No. They had 2 trucks that were amazing. Now they're down to 0. So I don't think Stewart-Haas is going to be as bad as we all think they are. I think they've just got to get speed back in their cars, and they have the resources to do that. Gene Haas is a billionaire.
With a B.
With a B.
And you saw a little bit yesterday. The 10 was obviously fast. They had their issues. Kevin was up there. He was in the top 5. He kind of used the pit strategy a little bit, but he was still a top 5 to 7 car even without that strategy. And then Briscoe, we haven't seen this guy in 2 months. He comes out with a good run. He runs the top 10, so that's good for them. Shot in the arm maybe, and hopefully they can transition this into maybe some progress going forward.
You better. You got 6 races to make the playoff: Pocono, Richmond, Michigan, Indy Road Course, Watkins Glen, and Daytona. 3 of those are wild cards, and you better have speed.
All right, well, it's time for Spot On, Spot Off, presented by our friends at MoneyLion.
Hey, there's one thing I like about MoneyLion. They sponsor DBC Spot On, Spot Off, but what I like even more about MoneyLion is something that I need right now is easy money.
Yeah, besides being a partner of ours at DBC here, they're the official digital finance partner of my day job over there at 2311 Racing.
That's not even a day job you've got. That's a weekend job.
Well, it's during the day sometimes.
I don't know if that counts, but we'll roll with it.
Listen, these guys are great people. I've met them multiple times at the racetrack. And we have a bunch of fun. The MoneyLion app is designed to help you take control of your money, Brett, so you can borrow, save, invest, and earn money all in one place.
And if you grab the MoneyLion app out of your app store, you can use the promo code $DirtyMo, set up direct deposit, and you immediately get $55 of easy free money.
I mean, that sounds pretty cool. And I will say I need that because kids and dirt racing are not cheap from what I'm learning.
Neither are those Golden Goose shoes you wear.
I don't know what you're talking about. So don't forget, use promo code $DirtyMo and earn up to $55. First topic. Both front row cars were warned after the restart in the Xfinity Series race that triggers a multi-car pileup. Spot on, spot off, Freddie.
I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Did you play a role in this?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play a role. My driver might have. Listen, so we had a restart. It was pretty early in the race too. And what happens? And this has been something that's been coming up more and more, especially with this new Cup car and obviously the Xfinity car too. Trucks is a big deal. Is trying to eliminate guys laying back on restarts, because what happens is it puts the leader at a deficit if the second place car, or even anybody really, if they can lay back and have momentum moving forward to you at the restart zone, you're kind of a sitting duck, especially as the leader. So kind of what happened here was Chandler's obviously, he's on the inside. John Hunter's the control car, and we are laid back a little bit. We're just not even. So John Hunter notices that, so the way he can combat that is waiting as long as possible, because what's going to happen is Chandler's going to anticipate it. He's going to start rolling in. It's not just Chandler. It's anybody that would be on the front row. They're going to anticipate the mark that John Hunter's going to go at, so they're going to continue their momentum forward. And so he's going to wait as long as possible to make them stop that momentum and then take off. And I guess he must have, and the other rule for the leader is you must maintain pace. So both of them were kind of playing games. Obviously, neither one went till the very last second. And then what happens is, obviously, the guys in second row on back, they are anticipating a green flag. They've been going in the same point every day, every restart for God knows how many years, and you're anticipating, and then you stop because they're not going in front of you. It's just a chain reaction and it could start anywhere. It could start row 2, row 3, 5, whatever, and it just ends up being a huge wreck, and there's just nowhere to get. It's just always an accordion. You always feel bad for the guy that's the third or fourth guy in line, because he usually ends up getting the nose torn off his car and then turned in front of the whole field, and we have a pile up at that. But they were trying to crack down on it, but obviously and more so after this because of what we saw here.
Listen, there are 3 racetracks we go to top of mind that are super narrow on restarts. Loudon is pretty narrow. Phoenix, back in the day when we restarted on what is now the backstretch, super narrow. Indianapolis, when we used to run the oval, super narrow. You can't afford to have these things happen and not a lot of times see big wrecks as a result of it. So I've always struggled with this on here about how many rules we have for restarts. I'm not going to leave that bus now, and I know that people are going to tell me why we need all these rules. But to me, green means go. And once the lead car goes, everybody goes. I don't care who passes before start finish. TJ was throwing something in our group chat to talk about this weekend where people were getting out of line before start finish. Like, I'm of the belief that we're at a race and you should be able to go as fast as you can to get there to win the race. I don't love all these restart rules. I don't love all the you can't go below yellow line on this track, but you can on that one.
But are you for wrecking your car before the start of the race?
I mean, if once they throw the green, I think we should have the ability to go wherever we want. And I think that telling me I have to stay in line when my line is checking up because of the Mickey Mouse crap that's going on the front row is what gets me rear-ended. Like, I'm a sucker to the game to the rule of the game. If I'm allowed to get out, and listen, we saw this in the SRX race. Marco Andretti said, "F you guys, I'm driving to the front on this restart." We can't have that happen because the leaders hadn't gone yet. But to me, there's a lot of rules in a place like this. It's tough to manage them all, and don't warn them. I mean,
yeah, and like to your point, this does lend itself to that issue of having to dive out of line early. There's a picture. I saw a picture of us doing it, and it's close. It's not like we're 20 cars from the start finish line out of line. You're right there, and you dipped out. You're just barely inside the guy in front of you. It's close. It's a judgment call, and I hate judgment calls. And now you're putting yourself in a position where they can ruin your day if they so choose. I saw pictures of the 20 doing the same thing, and they're just trying to get a little bit of advantage. And we're going to a place in Pocono this week where when we hit the start finish line, we're 6-7 wide. It seems like so you don't want that's something to keep an eye on this week of guys staying in line. And we've seen it at Phoenix. It seems like it's horrendous. Like, I don't know how they call it there, because that's a place where they need to figure out a more black and white rule, because we see it every time where you get start finish line, you're like, all right, hold your line now, and then inside before you can even get to the line, you're calling inside. So it's obviously not cut and dry, which I wish it was. But yeah, I think you have to have the rule. I don't mind the staying in line rule. Obviously, if they're checking up, you should be able to. The problem is, it's like they stack up, and they let you get out of line. But then you better get back in line. You can't advance your position.
You can't break the plane of the bumper of the car in front of you.
But isn't that the same rule where, like, unless you're forced below the yellow, like that's a similar rule, right? Like, it's up to really
them.
It's just it's a judgment call, and it's just when stuff like that happens or somebody misses a shift, it opens itself up to interpretation, and it's just it's not fun, but. Yeah, this was kind of created by the guys on the front row. They both got warned, and it's unfortunate that it ruined a lot. It ruined the day for a lot of good cars. But just they harped on it all the rest of that race all day Monday. And you'll look for it. If you look for it this week, there's going to be guys, whether it's the leader, the front row not staying side by side, or you'll see the guy second in line. He'll lay back a car length or two off the guy in front of him. Like, they're just trying to get an advantage, and they're going to, like we talk about this all the time with crew chiefs, you drivers, whatever, you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. So if you let them lay back 5 feet, they're going to try laying back 10 feet. And, it's just going to go on and on until they crack down on it. And hopefully they do, because that's what usually creates the mayhem on restarts.
Well, continuing on the Xfinity Series race topic, Creed-Custer says Creed's move on the last lap wasn't the right move. A lot of people are trying to clear themselves these days. You got to be able to clear the guy. Spot on, spot off. Brett.
I think we watched a master of this for the last 5 years be Kyle Larson. I mean, he kind of forces you into putting you in a bad spot, and you end up letting him in. And guys learn from talented guys. And what Kyle's been able to do, I think, is open the door for guys like Sheldon Creed to say, oh, well, if Kyle Larson can do it, then I can do it too. Well, it's up to drivers to police this crap. I mean, we've seen Larson make some people mad lately, and then, he gets out. And, I mean, even his buddy Denny on his podcast, Denny said, hey, Kyle's got a reputation for doing this. If the guy on the outside decides to not lift and hook him, I mean, that's his right too, I guess. And I think, Cole's basically saying, and look, Cole's a pretty mild personality, like when you talk to him. I mean, to see some fire coming out of him inside the race car, I'm here for it. I think the fans win. I mean, you just hate to see – I mean, to me, Creed-Custer's probably having a little bit of a frustrating season. I expected this guy to go out and win 5+ races. And I expected to see, him, Sammy Smith, John Hunter. John Hunter obviously is setting the world on fire. When you look at the playoff points he's got compared to everybody else, he's in a different world in this championship conversation for the Xfinity Series. But I think Cole's frustrated, and I think he had one of the best cars, and it's unfortunate he wrecked it.
Yeah, I mean, he ran, like I said earlier, he ran top 2 or 3 all day, and you get kind of painted into a box at the end. We get a late caution. We're all in the top 3, and you have to choose between taking the top behind the leader, which is the preferred line, or taking the front row. And Cole stuck on the front row, and we passed him, and now he's back there having a race with Sheldon, and Sheldon did, and I saw a lot of this weekend, where, it's obviously hard to pass. We've seen guys, you get to the bottom, and it's just hard to complete the pass running the bottom. So guys that were faster would run a guy down, and then they would just kind of dive bomb the corner and run up the hill. We saw it with Priest and McDowell. They're arguing after the race because McDowell did the same thing. He just kind of drove in there and door slammed Priest and knocked him up into the fence and ruined his day. But you just see, I mean, listen, Bubba did it to, not Cindric, Briscoe at least one time. You can't. The problem is with these, the tires don't wear out. They get hot. So now if you're underneath a guy for 10 laps or whatever it is trying to pass him, you're just heating your tires up. And what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to complete the pass, and now you're going to be stuck behind him for the rest of the run, essentially.
Yeah.
Or until you can cool your tires down and make another run at it. So when you get position on a guy, you've got to take it. And like to your point, it's up to that guy to let you in or not. Because there's numerous times yesterday I've seen guys could have gotten hooked in the fence by just going in there. You get about 3/4, 90% clear, and just start coming up, and the guy backs out, or he's going to put himself in a bad position if he doesn't back out. And that's kind of what Creed did to Cole coming to the white there. He just throttled up in the middle of 3 and 4 like he was going to get clear and never did, and kind of put Cole up in the marbles. And Cole got loose off of 4 and come down and hooked him. I don't think there was anything intentional about it on Cole's part. I don't think he was sad to see it happen maybe until he wrecked. But it just looked to me like Sheldon. Listening to Sheldon's interview, he was like he almost expected Cole to lift and let him in, and it's like you're coming to the white flag. That's not going to happen. So yeah. It's about respect, and if the guy on the outside chooses to race you, this is the position you're going to end up in sometimes.
I'm sitting here looking at the Xfinity Series standings, and there's 2 things that are going on right now for all you guys listening and gals. People are worried about, if you're locked into the playoffs, you're worried about one thing, and it's bonus playoff points. If you're not locked into the playoff points, you're obviously trying to get ahead of the bubble and or win a race. There's only 3 guys in the Xfinity Series with multiple wins. John Hunter's got 4, Austin Hill's got 3, and Creed-Custer's got 2. So, man, there's a pretty big gap of who your championship 4 favorites are going to be, because they're going to have these playoff points. I mean, Chandler Smith is sitting there, 5th in points, so he's obviously going to get a nice little playoff point payday. He's got 7 bonus points. That's not many. Not when you look at what John Hunter's got with 20+, and he's going to get a 15-point cushion by beating the championship leader. That's what these guys, their mentality is. John Hunter is in kill mode right now. He has nothing to lose and everything to gain to buy himself a ticket to Phoenix.
Yeah, because at this point, you know, when you factor in the amount of points he's already got on us, and then the amount of points he's going to gain by being, I'm assuming he's going to win the regular season championship. He's probably in good shape for that.
It looks like it. He's 33 points ahead of Austin Hill.
Yeah, I mean, that's not undoable for Austin, but that's another gap. He's going to have essentially a race on us, you know, where he can fall out and we can win and not catch him, you know, almost, you know. So that's a huge deal, especially when you get to that last round and there's only, you know, 6 or 7, whatever it is, 8 of you, and it's, you know, a couple races. But it, you know, that's what those points do for you when we get to those later rounds.
Moving on to the Cup Series, Truex says in the final caution caused by Christopher Bell, we should have a company policy that says when one of your teammates is leading, don't crash by yourself. And I certainly hope that's a joke. Spot on, spot off, Freddie.
The problem is it's not a joke.
It's not a joke.
It's like it's not even a joke at all.
No, he's not joking.
He's not joking, and it seems irrational and unnecessary. Like, obviously he doesn't know what happened, and there's 2 situations that come about. If I could side with Martin if Christopher drove in there and spun somebody out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If he just drove in the corner, run somebody over and spun him out and caused the caution, yes, you'd be pissed at your teammate. Like, you stupid idiot. Like, now I got to have a restart. I got to battle this guy. But Christopher's got a very fast race car. He's trying to come back to the pack. He had a loose wheel, had to come back in. He's trying to fight back from that all day. And he just goes into turn 3 and oversteps it just a little bit and just kind of gets that, you know, gets the bounce in and loses it and backs it in the fence. And you start calling him out for ruining your race. Like, this is not a good look. And we've seen this from Martin before. Sometimes he gets a little hot under the collar. And
as a spotter, have you ever told your driver, hey, your teammate's leading right here. There's 10 to go. Have you ever tried to make your driver, because I have. I mean, obviously, you know, Elliott Sadler, Dale Jarrett, Clint Boyer had a lot of teammates that were competing for wins at Stewart-Haas and Michael Waltrip Racing back in the day. Like, I've made my driver aware, maybe you don't want to go to the edge right here. You know, I see you out there hustling. I see you over driving it. Maybe for the company, like, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. So this is an error on Christopher Bell's part. And luckily for, you know, Joe Gibbs Racing and Martin Truex Jr., it didn't cost him the win. But Martin means what he's saying.
Oh, yeah.
He's pissed right there.
Yeah, he's pissed. I'm sure knowing James, he's probably fueling it. Like, you know, he's
But
son of a bitch just spun out.
But I think, Brett, you've said it on the podcast before. Although they're a team, they're also not really, because they're competing against each other for a win. So, I mean, Christopher's doing all he can, right, to get to that next position.
He is, but you don't want to screw. Well, you don't want to have to sit in that Tuesday debrief with Joe Gibbs looking at you like, you dumbass, we were going to win the race till you wreck running by yourself. It's easier to swallow the wreck if he is racing somebody. And look, we've heard about these cars.
Well, I mean, he was racing somebody.
Yeah,
there was cars all over.
There was cars. But we hear about these cars all the time. Like, once they step out, you're already wrecking.
Yeah.
Tyler Reddick proves that theory pretty wrong. I see him making saves every week on TV. You're like, wow, what a save, Tyler Reddick. I mean, if you went through and said, this guy, who has the most saves this year, I'm willing to bet you it's Tyler Reddick.
I'm sure, yeah. There's a couple times I've been reading the door number on that one.
Listen, it's hard racing. It is what it is. But Truex is not kidding.
I don't know.
And in his mind, the problem is he thought this and he pressed the button and told everybody this. He's 43 years old. I mean, he's been in just about every scenario in a race car that you can be in, and he knows he's dominated this race, and he doesn't want to lose it because a teammate did something stupid.
And let me tell you something. I'm glad it didn't happen because the race played out great for us, and we got a good finish. But coming to 2 to go off of 4, the 54 pounded defense.
Yep.
I think somebody got into each other on the bottom and ran them up into him. Could you imagine if he just got done saying this, and then the next caution is for the 54? And it's tie. What are you going to do? You know, I don't think you're going to call him out.
Yeah. Well,
but I thought that it's funny. You know, it is what it is. But I don't think obviously Christopher obviously didn't intend to ruin Martin's race. But to Brett's point, I guess you could try to back her down a little bit. But you're not going to. Like,
you're not going to.
You're going for everything you can, especially when you know you've got a really good race car and you're kind of been put behind the 8 ball.
There's one thing about the sprint car and dirt racers making it to the Cup Series that makes me really excited and happy. It's they never stop giving you 110%. It's like they're running a 25-lap feature for 500 laps or 500 miles. Like, they're never not giving you And that's the difference in when I got here in the 90s versus now, or late 90s, is guys were out there managing the race, taking care of their equipment, running at 85, 90%, getting to that last fuel window. You can't do that anymore. These guys they're balls to the wall from the drop of the rag.
Well, more topics on Truex, and he says this after the race, it is feeling like a championship year. Brett.
I actually went back, and I'm glad this is on the show sheet. I went and looked at Martin's lap-led percentage. He's obviously got 3 wins this year, Dover, Sonoma, Loudon. In those 3 wins, we talked about it on the show earlier this year. When he wins, he freaking tends to dominate, right? He has 3 wins. He's led 373 out of 811 laps. That's 46% of laps led when he wins. His championship year, 2017, he had 8 wins. He led 2,253 laps out of 10,000 some laps. He led 21% of the laps that he raced. Like, that is absolutely insane. So is he trending toward being a championship favorite? It looks like it from his confidence level. It looks like it from how fast his cars are. And most importantly, it looks like it from a dominant fashion of how he wins these races.
Yeah. I mean, you go back and look, and I was looking at it this morning. He's probably got 4 of the most dominant wins that I can remember.
Well, that Coke 600 one made me want to puke.
That Coke 600, he led 392 of 400 laps.
That was miserable to watch.
The Southern 500, he led 248 of 290 laps.
That was equally as miserable.
Martinsville, he led 464 of 500 laps.
I'm going to the bathroom to puke right now.
And then he does this on yesterday. Like, I mean, obviously, like, to your just credit to him, like when he goes out and dominates, he dominates. It's not in question. And yeah, I don't know how you don't call him the championship favorite right now. You know, Byron's obviously got 4 wins, but I feel like Martin's 4 wins have been much more dominant, and Martin's had more speed for sure of late than the 24 has. And you know, and I don't know how you don't call him a championship favorite right now.
He also, I mean, we talk about the don't give a tour. He don't have to give a. No. This guy's 43. We just said it. 43 years old, won tons of races. He's a champion. Like, he doesn't feel any pressure right now. No. He just goes out, has fun, and to be honest with you, kicks everybody's butt.
Well, on that note, obviously not knowing what his plans are for next year. I mean, are you hearing any rumors? Does this obviously mean he's there? I feel like there's a few Xfinity drivers on the Toyota camp that should be moving up to Cup, like a John Hunter. I mean, this essentially, he's in the waiting game at this point, right?
You could say if he could have the ultimate walk-off, win a championship, and leave, but I just don't. When you're in this position, you're kicking everybody's ass as bad as you are. How could you walk away?
I don't. I mean, I know what kind of money that they can come back and make as a champion. Not that Martin Truex needs money. You know, I don't want it to be about that, but
I'm sure he doesn't mind money.
I mean, if you could come back and make 7 figures, 8 figures, I mean, whatever the numbers are, and be the reigning champion. And I don't know. I personally, and I mean, this is me playing fan, I personally don't want to see Martin Truex retire right now. I think he's awesome for the sport. I think he's a personality a lot of people can relate to. He's a fisherman. He's a hunter. He aligns well with Bass Pro Shops. And, I mean, he's one of the last guys that are left that maybe I feel like is a man's man out there. I mean, there's some younger guys like a Jeb Burton. I mean, he's a man's man. He grew up in the woods with his daddy, and they chasing snakes and all that other crazy shit they do up there in Virginia. But there's not a lot of guys like Martin Truex left around here, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, I mean, to Casey's point, you know, John Hunter's coming. Sammy Smith's coming. And you're going to have to make room for them guys somewhere or they're going to leave.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to hire them.
And we saw this with Toyota in the past. You know, like they have a pipeline of drivers coming up, and there's only so many. I mean, obviously you have the option now maybe of a 2311 or Legacy now coming to Toyota. But in the past, you know, you lost guys to you know, the fact that you only had 4 Cup rides. And so, yeah, there's got to be a place for him to go. And John Hunter, he's ready now. He was ready when he ran Cup, you know, whatever it was, 3 or 4 years ago. He did well in that 38 car. So
I think
he's just proving his worth again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great problem for Toyota to have, right? Like, they obviously have some incredible drivers that they brought to this level, such as a Christopher. I mean, you see where he is right now. Like, I just wonder maybe when it comes to Legacy or another team, you know, what it looks like for Sammy Smith and John Hunter.
Great point. this is exactly why Toyota needed a Legacy Motor Club added, because it gives them more seats. Obviously, they've got two highly capable drivers, in my opinion. Noah's having a god-awful year, man. Bless his heart. I wouldn't want to fly on an airplane
He
with
was
him.
asking for, he was saying you can't wait for the offseason, in March?
Maybe the ghost version of Noah Gregson was riding with me yesterday when I DNF'd 2 cars on I-77, because I feel like his luck's literally that bad. But, Casey, great point. Legacy Motor Club is 2 more Toyota seats, and it opens up the door for Toyota to make more moves, because when they only had 4 or 5 seats in the Cup Series and you had 10-plus drivers coming, you knew you couldn't keep them all. I mean, you knew the Corey Himes and the Chandler Smiths and the whoever else you rattle off, eventually they're going to have to go somewhere because there wasn't enough seats. Now you start talking about 8, and then 2311 has the capabilities of adding 2 cars. I mean, you start talking about 8 to 10 seats. That's now a third of the series from a franchise standpoint. You can dominate with that many cars.
Yeah.
All right, listen up, everybody. I know y'all are probably putting together vacation plans, planning your next tailgate at the track, or just looking to upgrade some things around the house.
Our new sponsor, MoneyLion, the all-in-one mobile finance app, has been part of the racing community for years and is dedicated to helping people like you take control of your money and make good things happen. With MoneyLion, you can borrow, save, invest, and earn money all in one place.
And here's the best part. They want to chip in with a little something to get you started. That's right. Easy money, people.
Download the MoneyLion app today, and when you open an account, use the promo code $DIRTYMO, DIRTYMO. Then just set up direct deposit to earn up to $55. How awesome is that? The promo code $DIRTYMO and get up to $55.
Make sure to follow them on social media because they are hooking race fans up with opportunities to win some really great stuff, including cash giveaways, exclusive on-track experiences, and custom rewards like the next level grills for your tailgate.
With the MoneyLion app, you're one step closer to getting your financial future on the right path. Visit MoneyLion.com/HotPass for more info. Moving on to the DBCA main, where we catch up on all things dirt, and I think we could spend hours talking about everything that went on in the dirt world this week, between the Million, racing at Eldora, Millbridge. I mean, anything else we have here.
Brett, your boy won the Kings Royal, Brett.
I saw that. How cool is that?
Donnie Schatz did win his 6th Kings Royal.
Insane.
That's insane. He's 1 now off of Kinzer, who has the most with 7. What a phenomenal week of racing at Eldora. You've seen Schuchart. He kind of kicked everybody's ass for the Million on Thursday night. Friday night, I think it was Macedo won the night before. And then Donnie goes out there and wins the Kings Royal on Saturday. I'm sure I saw some videos of the crowd was phenomenal.
Largest in history, I think.
Yeah, it was an amazing event.
Donnie Schatz is only 46, too.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys drive a lot longer than our guys.
Yeah.
They can.
Yeah. I mean, Kinzer. I mean, Sammy's still out there racing.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, it was a phenomenal weekend. Mike Marlar won a big late model race at Ponderosa. I seen Davenport. Your boy Davenport got him a win this week.
I saw that. I love he was fussing about inverts, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But man, I as a fan, I was like, oh man, inverts are cool. But then when I got here, I was like, man, why? I finished first. Why would you penalize me and put me 8th?
You started on the pole, or you qualified first. Why? Yeah.
And listen, that the King. So I don't know enough about dirt racing to know why this is put in place. But the Kings Royal obviously had a lot of rain. The track was, when its track is, kind of wet or tacky, they haul ass, and there was an invert put in place at the Kings Royal where 9 out of the top 15 qualifiers didn't make the A main.
Wow.
I mean, including Brad Sweet.
I saw Brad Sweet didn't make it. They offered him a deal to start in the back, but wouldn't pay him.
Logan, that won the $1 million race, he didn't make the race for the Kings Royal. So there was obviously some kind of, maybe there's a middle ground we could find there. I seen Gravel. I think he played the invert pretty smart. I think it was, they said, he's been in the top 3 qualifying like all year. And this race, he qualified 33rd and started on the pole of his heat race. So I mean, I don't know if you could fine tune it that much, but he certainly did if he could.
It's all about luck too. Like, you have the revenge draw at certain races where you essentially can give somebody whatever number you pull, and then if you don't like them,
it was a great weekend of racing across the board. It just feels like every race this past weekend was so important, no matter where it was.
Yeah.
I do want to give a shout out to CB Industries and, of course, Bryant Wiedemann, who won his first USAC National Midget win on Thursday.
What does CB stand for?
Chloe Boat Industries.
Chloe Boat Industries.
Yep. So
I got to give a shout out to my buddy Tyler Courtney. Obviously, got injured in the Friday night feature the night before. He's going to be out for a while. Broke some vertebrae.
Ooh.
Or fractured some vertebrae. I don't know what the correct term is there.
Either way, it don't sound good.
Yeah, no. He's going to be laid up for a while.
Flipped or landed hard?
I haven't seen it. I didn't even know what happened. I had gone to bed early on Friday night, believe it or not, and I was actually during the Xfinity race. Chris Wyndham texted me, asked me if I talked to Tyler. So on one of the stage breaks, I kind of texted him back, and I said, no, what's going on? And he told me. So then, of course, I reached out to Tyler, and I talked to him a little bit. And he seems like he's doing well, obviously, as well as he can be. He's home, not at the hospital or anything. I seen a picture of him at the shop the other day. So he's going to be laid up for a while. Hopefully he gets to sit around, listen to DBC. Him and his roommate, Rizzy. I know Rizzy's a huge DBC fan. He loves both of us very much.
But
why?
He's a unicorn.
Yeah. But maybe not you so much, but I know he loves me anyway. But yeah, so shout out to them guys, and just get well soon, Tyler. We have a vacation to go on in December that you need to be healed up for. It's not to Hawaii as much as you think it is. But just get back there, and I'm sure he'll be back better.
Well, tons more racing this upcoming week. I think we have the Champion Oil Summer Nationals at Williams Grove this Friday and Saturday. I think we have like a Millbridge Kids Night. There's tons of local races. So head out to a local dirt track or catch it on Dirt Vision. And catch us on Dirt Vision this upcoming Wednesday. All right, well, as usual, you all just cannot stop talking. So I think we only have one Reaction Theater call we have time for today. Let's kick it.
I finally figured it out. We can cure any drought going on around the globe. All we got to do is send the NASCAR Cup Series, and boom, they'll have rain. Thank me later.
This guy is not lying.
Or if you want snow in California.
I feel like it's rained everywhere we've been since the week off.
Or snowed.
Or snowed. It's been
It
ridiculous.
definitely hadn't snowed since the week off.
Well, no, it definitely had. Yeah, not in July. But no, but it's. I feel like everywhere. Chicago last week.
I mean, we
week.
had a tornado warning in New Hampshire. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
I didn't know you could even have tornadoes in New Hampshire with all those
I woke
mountains.
up on Sunday. There was a flood. I had alerts go, flood warning, tornado warning, flash floods. I was like, this is going to be fun. Like, I please cancel the race before I have to leave this room. But I'll tell you where it does not rain, Brett.
Where?
It's not going to rain in the suite at the Dirty Mo Ultimate Experience.
Well, if it does rain, you'll still be inside out of the rain where there is complimentary beer and food as part of your ticket purchase. We've sold a lot of tickets already to the Bristol experience. Mike Davis and I had a 45-minute phone call yesterday about a lot of different projects that we've got going on around here, and the Bristol suite was top of mind. I can tell you he's as excited about this one as any he's ever been excited about.
Yeah, well, I mean, this one last year was probably my favorite. Like we talked about last week, the Bristol suites are some of the best suites in the world alone. Then you add the fact that we'll be in there, and it just ramps it up that much more.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but at least the racing is always exciting.
The racing is going to be fun. I'll be hanging out. We'll have some cool merch for you guys. Y'all get a bunch of cool swag. We make sure everybody's hooked up when they leave. Obviously, me, Freddie, TJ, we hang out for a while. I even hang out for even longer. Some what my staff likes to call Instagrammable moments.
Content.
We'll have set up in there for some. I call them selfie stations because that's what I like to say. But we're trying to modernize our game, if you will.
Yeah, I see, and I've seen some. I got actually this twice this week about minors coming, and we don't have an issue with any age restrictions, right? We would rather they don't drink the Fireball.
They can't have the Fireball if they're not 21. Other than that, no, there's no age restrictions.
But don't you worry, they'll drink it for you.
Yeah, well, Brett will be happy to take all minors' Fireballs and put them in his pocket.
Yeah. No, listen, man. 15 years old to have an opportunity for your family to bring you to an experience like this, and I love to spoil my kids. I think we all do. And to bring here's the problem: if you bring your kid to this event, you're screwing them up for the rest of their life because they're not going to want to go sit in a chicken bone section with homeboy eating peanuts and spitting tobacco. Like they're going to want to come sit with the VIPs from now on.
Yeah, I would bring your daughters, who are about 15, 16 now, just to the fact that they could drive me home. That would be the move that I would be going with.
Yes. Jovi is 16 and she could drive.
She's already driven me home.
Yeah,
so.
and maybe I'll make them come work this thing too, because they need to do something this summer. I've had them busy, but they're not busy enough. But listen, Bristol Motor Speedway, Ultimate Experience, Dirty Mo Media. Make sure you go and get your tickets. The website is
dirtymomedia.com/ultimate experience, I believe.
You nailed it.
Yeah,
That's why I let you do that.
Yeah, I mean, like we said last year, these things are going fast. They are running low already, so I wouldn't wait. They're probably gonna sell out this week or so, I would think. So
we try to make them all a little different too. So look for some new things. We see a lot of repeat customers of these things, and it's going to be a lot of fun. There's nothing else being offered like this because there's only one of Freddie and one of TJ out there.
Thank God.
Got that right. All right, well, to leave an audio message 24/7, don't forget our new number, 704-802-9572. Save it to your phone so you can just
That's a great idea.
easy access, put like Brett Sucks under it, and you'll be perfectly fine.
That's a great idea.
Or you can still head to anchor.fm/NormalBreakClear. You'll see that message icon, and the team will keep picking the best ones. Another method of asking us questions is Ask DBC. Just tweet us your questions using hashtag AskDBC. We always have some really good ones. This first one is from Bryson. In your opinion, what would the effects be of Chase not making the playoffs for NASCAR as a whole, on top of like TV tickets, merch, his crazy fans, all that good stuff?
Man, if you would have asked me this question a month and a half ago when he first came back, I'd tell you it's a moot point because he's going to make the playoffs. And we're getting to crunch time now, and it's the light is dimming, I will say. I don't think it's completely impossible. Obviously, he can win a race at any point, but to point his way in it's going to be a lot harder now.
I know that people think that we don't like Chase Elliott. Let me tell you something. I don't know Chase Elliott that well, but every time I've ever met him or been around him, he's been very cordial. I like Chase Elliott. So this statement that I'm about to make is not toward him personally. It's not going to do him any good to make this playoff. If he makes it, it doesn't matter. He's led 38 laps in 13 races. That's less than 1% or around 1% of total laps that he's run, 3,000 laps. He's led 38. He is not in a situation. He's the slowest Hendrick car every week for whatever reason. Obviously, he's coming off an injury. He's coming off a suspension. I don't know what's going on with this team or this guy. I thought, Freddie, the same thing. But here's the good news. We got 2 road courses. We know he's fast at road courses, although I think the Indy road course is a damn demolition derby getting into one. You can throw that one into the whatever it takes to win because I don't think talent is on top of my list there. But I think he won Pocono recently, right?
Last year when JJ.
That's pretty damn recently. So I feel like he's not out yet. He's not out of the playoffs because you know why? We haven't started the playoffs. There are things that could take other drivers out of the playoffs that are locked in. Look at Kurt Busch. We had no idea that he would not be in the playoff, even though he was playoff eligible, right? So I don't think he's out. I just think based on how he's run this year, if he gets in, it really doesn't matter because he's not going to have a championship run. Do I hope he proves me wrong? Actually, yes, I do, because I want him as the most popular driver that currently buckles into race cars in America to go out and do well for his team, his sponsor, and his sponsors, and obviously our sport as a whole. We all need him. But don't give me this Chase Elliott playoff championship conversation because so far he's not proved to me why he should be relevant in it.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at it. He's averaging about 29 points a race. The guys that are at the cutoff line are averaging 21-ish. So, you know, that's only 7-8 points a race. The math don't work out to where he's going to make up 60. If it was one guy, and if he's chasing Bubba and he's 60 points behind Bubba, you know, he could maybe make that up if Bubba has a bad race here or there. But you're chasing 3 guys for 2 spots. You know, it's going to be a lot harder to do. To your point, the races coming up aren't great for him. He did win Pocono last year, but it was after the JGR cars got disqualified. His average finish there is like a 14th. He only had a couple top 5s in the last few years. Watkins Glen is the one you got to circle for him. He's been very good there. He's got 4 consecutive top 5s, including 2 wins. So if he's going to get in, I think it's the Watkins Glen race, and he's going to have all the resources now. Or I say that, but he can't have all the resources because they got to get the 48 in also. And and you know and guys are going to be trying to keep him out.
Here's the scenario: you have to lead the last lap to win the race. Right now, mathematically, there's a 1% chance that's going to happen based on how his season's going.
Yeah, but
I don't know how else to lay it out.
At the same time, you know how it is with this deal. You can get hot, you can flip a switch, and we've seen it in the past. But yeah, as of right now, I don't think he can point his way in. I'd be surprised if he could. I'm circling that Watkins Glen race as one that is his best shot, I think. But
Byron has right now 30-plus playoff points coming his way, assuming he can stay in the top 2 in the standings, which he should. If I'm Hendrick Motorsports, I want Chase Elliott to make it, but I want Alex Bowman to make it. But again, are they really championship caliber teams right now?
not right now.
They're not. So I'm going to put my eggs in that basket of, man, let's bankroll as many playoff points as we can for this 24 team. They're our best chance to make it to Phoenix.
Yeah, and to answer your question, it's huge for the sport, obviously. I mean, we saw the ratings dip, the whatever it was, 4 or 6 weeks he was out. You know, we took, like a 500,000 viewer hit, just him not being there. You know, obviously you're going to still sell the merch and stuff, but it'll hurt the sport for sure if the most popular driver, to Brett's credit, to Brett's point, in the world right now, you know, or maybe not the world versus maybe the Formula One guys,
certainly
but
here
in the country, you know, across all forms of racing. So it would definitely hurt if he didn't make it. But as of right now,
and by the way, I hope he makes it.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know why, because you hate him so much, but.
This next one is from Master of Light.
Oh, the Master of Light.
Yes, he always has some good questions.
Master of Light.
What is your favorite championship battle you've been able to watch in NASCAR, and why?
I got 2 probably. One, I was really young, so I couldn't appreciate it at the time, but going back and watching it was the 92 championship battle with like Kowicki and I think it was Davey and Bill Elliott, where Kowicki was smart enough to realize that if he led all the laps, it made it, you know, that point alone made a difference in the championship. But the Tony Stewart run in whatever year that was with him and Carl Edwards, they ended up tied and Tony won it. The run he went on there at the end of the year was outstanding. I don't even know what else to call it, to run him down and win that championship.
Yeah, I mean, there's been too many for me to just say there's one favorite, because there's some that were blowouts that I had a lot of respect for, because of I know what it takes to go out there and blow people out all year. I mean, we've seen guys, you know, like Terry Labonte, I think not win a race, win a championship. And so the hard part for me is really narrowing it down, because there's been so many different formats over the years, and even going back to when NASCAR started to now, there's been so many different formats in the 20 years I've been here that it's even almost too many to count, because Jimmy Johnson kept winning in all of them. So in my mind, they just kept changing them to try to find something that he couldn't win a freaking championship in. But I mean, you know, watching Carl Edwards and Logano battle there at Homestead that year, and wrecking, and Keselowski winning and getting faced on ESPN. Like, I mean, I could keep going about championships that are out there for me, but probably the one that I'm just most intrinsically happy about is the one from Dale Jarrett in '99, I believe it was. And when he won that championship, became a great friend of mine later in life, a mentor, somebody I owned a business with him for many years. And so if there's anybody deserving, coming from the legacy that the Jarrett name has been, you know, in this sport, obviously Ned, obviously Jason Jarrett, his son Spot's now a former racer. And so for me, my favorite championship's got to be Dale Jarrett.
Interesting. This last one is from Patrick. What do y'all do when you're stuck at the track for an extra day? And I probably know the answer to it.
Well, Freddie has the most luck when I'm there and we go to a Hooters and we can consume a few draft beers and some chicken wings.
And walk home in a monsoon.
And walk home and get – actually, you're not going to believe this, but it rained so hard at Luke Combs this past Saturday night that my underwear got wet like they did that time, that Freddie made me – listen, Freddie and I are not the most agile humans.
Speak for yourself.
That you've ever seen.
I don't want to hear about rain at Luke Combs, okay?
We had to walk / run from Hooters. Where were we? What was that town? We were near Birmingham.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't Leeds. Anyway, we were in this town near Birmingham, and when I tell you we had to walk a mile in a monsoon, I am not lying. I got back. I only had one pair of shoes packed, and I put it on the freaking heater, and I turned the heater wide open in the middle of summer, and I woke up sweating like it was a complete disaster. But no, listen, there's all kinds of things to do when it rains, and it depends on where we're at. You know, some of the places there's lots to do. Some of the places there's literally zero to do. So I was, had I been in New Hampshire, I would have stayed in a town called Mills Falls. It is a phenomenal little town if you've never been. It's on a lake. But I've also been trapped in Tipton, New Hampshire.
Yes.
Bro.
I think it's Tilton, right?
Tilton.
But that pizza place is amazing.
Tilton, New Hampshire is not where you want to be trapped.
I didn't do anything.
Where'd y'all stay?
I was in Concord.
At the Marriott? Where were you?
No, I was at we were at the True by Hilton as a new one. It's right there by the
Did you go to the
highway.
sports bar we like?
No, I didn't. I wasn't real close to that draft.
Yeah,
with the
I love
smoked
that
wings.
place. Yeah.
No, we didn't go to that one. Megan was there for the trip, so I was. By the time that day had come, I was ready to do nothing because I had been at Stafford for a couple days, and then all night we were out Saturday night with the Black Flag Clowns up at the top of the X slot. So I was ready to just have a day off on Sunday. So
I will tell you this, Casey, for spotters. Like, once it starts raining, we either want to know, and I got to tell you this, too. We either want to know that we're going to race or not. And if we're not, just call it.
Yeah.
But the Luke Combs thing, they had a lightning strike. And he was on stage. He played one song, and he's like, listen, I just got word there's a lightning strike. I got to leave the stage. I promise you I'm going to come back, and I don't care if we have to play till 5 in the morning. I'm here to raise hell and sing country music. So he left. So obviously everyone, quote, sought shelter in place. And I was standing underneath the concourse where I could see out the tunnel and I could see the big screen. And it literally every 15 minutes updated you on what's going on. There's another lightning strike. We'll update you in 15 minutes. Next update coming in 15. And finally, boom, they said, come back out. The way that they communicated to the 50, 60,000 people that were there was awesome. I really wish someone from NASCAR, the brass, would have been there to experience.
I'm sure they were.
To experience the fact that you don't have to keep your fans in the dark. Yeah, we know when it's raining, but we want to know what is your intention. Because Luke Combs said, I'm coming back out here no matter what.
Okay. Yeah. For the record, I don't want to hear about Luke Combs because I missed Blink 182 and Luke Combs to work New Hampshire, so part-timer over there. Second, I do think NASCAR did a pretty good job this weekend.
They did an amazing job.
They knew there was not a window. They communicated very well, at least from our standpoint, from a sponsor side. So
they did an amazing job.
Before we move on from Luke Jones.
George
Jones. I was going to say I seen our buddy Drew Parker was there, and I seen he played a impromptu concert. Was that while it was raining? I don't know what was the deal with that.
So I met TJ's buddy Justin and Kyle Long. Kyle Long is former NFL player. Does some stuff for Barstool. His dad, Howie Long, I was a little bit awestruck because I was like, dude, your dad was a badass. So anyway, me and Drew and Kyle and Justin were standing there talking, and Drew has to go because he's getting ready to play a set on the stage in a parking lot party, which was a really cool thing that Luke's doing for everybody. Whiskey Jam is the name of it. And so Drew leaves. Well, thank God he left because this is when I got wet. It came a full-blown downpour, lightning popping all around us. Fortunately, we found a beer tent to get under. I'm not sure how safe that was, but we had beer. And Drew didn't have an opportunity to play his set because of the weather. But the second that the weather moved out, boom, Drew shows up with his guitar underneath the concourse and just plays a show. I saw Andrew was sending video from there. Drew, man, I'm pumped up for him. Good dude, good country music. And my favorite part about him is he's a country music singer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And listen, we could probably talk him into coming on here.
He'll come on.
Yeah. I think Duggar's signed up, and now we'll get.
When does Duggar come on?
The two of them like to battle each other, so now I'll just make it a competition.
Wait, when does Duggar come on?
Duggar's coming. I think maybe later this year, maybe around the Roval, possibly.
We should just get them both on at the same time.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That would be fun.
I support it.
Kyle Long wants to come on too. I tell you what, he's a grown ass man.
I bet he is.
Holy cow! I mean. He said, man, I spent half my career in Charlotte chasing that Luke Kuechly guy, and I never did catch him.
Let's move on to What an Idiot. I don't even know who to ask because I feel like there might be a few contenders.
I don't remember who I picked for.
What an
I
idiot.
didn't even know who you got.
Oh, there's so many to pick from.
I
this
feel
week.
like I know who yours is going to be.
Nah,
Brett,
man. Well, I
thought
really
would you
wanted
like to
to
start?
repeat winner this week.
I really wanted to pick the 24 Xfinity
what
car
I figured.
again because he obviously goes out there and wrecks. But then not only does he do that, he wrecks from 7 rows back and drives head on into a freaking wreck. And literally makes me look so smart from last week when I say this is why you don't put yourself in position to fail.
It's hard to make you look smart, and sometimes some people do it. Sometimes
Some people are make it really fucking easy to make me look smart. So the 24 Xfinity car, I was sitting there Thursday night when SRX started. I'm like, who in the absolute hell thinks it's a good idea to bring Paul Tracy back? And dude, it ain't 5 minutes into this thing. He's running people in the dirt. He's wrecking people. And I'm like, well, I look like a genius again because why'd you bring this guy back? But my what an idiot does not have anything to do with racing this week.
Okay.
It is a young lady.
Oh boy.
Who I've had the pleasure of meeting, got to know her at one point in her life. She's a country music singer, and she stopped.
Oh, I've seen this.
She stopped her entire concert.
I almost text you this. I'm sorry.
She stopped her entire concert to basically tell 5 young ladies on the front row to stop taking selfies and to enjoy country music instead of taking selfies. They paid a lot of money to be in those seats. They can do whatever the they want, Miranda Lambert. This is a bad look for you. I don't know what she was thinking. Obviously, she was distracted and got annoyed by it. But we were talking about Instagrammable moments and selfie stations earlier. That's all these young people care about. And the fact that you're their backdrop, you're their hero, and you stopped and you decided to embarrass those people and tell them to stop taking pictures? What the are you thinking? What an idiot.
Yeah, I don't.
Did you see it?
I almost texted you because I wasn't sure if you had seen it, but then I'm glad you did. I almost talked about it when we got here. Yeah, I was reading the comments, and she was just getting eaten alive in the comments. But I mean, who? Oh, you can't take pictures at a concert all of a sudden? Or just because I could see you can't take a picture?
They weren't looking at her.
Yeah.
Talk about the fun police. Like, she's not on Team Fun.
Oh, so listen, mine was an idiot, and I have to admit that I have not listened to many episodes of our other sister podcast, Dirty Mo Doe. Obviously, we can't gamble, so it doesn't do us any good to listen to a gambling podcast. But I came across, and I think Brett was the one that sent it to me. Social media post of the picks from this weekend from Chopper, and Chopper went a stunning 3-26.
Oh my
his
gosh!
picks this week.
He's an idiot.
He had like 8 or 9 guys to win. None of them won. He had like some matchups. I think he had 2 right of the 8 or 9 matchups that he picked. He picked some groupings. None of them were right. He did pick a Toyota to win. That was a good call. That was probably an easy bet. But he picked like Reddick to be the highest finishing Toyota. That wasn't good. So yeah, I think I counted like 28, 29 picks, and he got 3 of them right. So
well, there's something you can do in the sports world when this happens.
Fade him.
Fade that guy. We've got a baseball guy on Twitter that we fade.
We're gonna start our own betting podcast, and it'll be called Door Bumper. Clearly, don't listen to those guys. So we're gonna debut next Thursday afternoon.
Here's the beauty of the podcast, though. You get a lot of, and listen, we talked today about stats. I hate being a stat. I am a stat guy in my mind, but I don't love talking about it on here because we got enough Larry Macks in the world that are out there digesting these things and breaking them down. And I don't sit in the bathtub board often and have to go through, Racing Reference and figure out what we're going to talk about on Monday or Tuesday. But like the cool thing is when you listen to podcasts like that, you get a lot of information that helps you make a pretty damn good decision about what you want to do.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean obviously he's not good at making decisions.
I know Steve always breaks down some good stats, and maybe this guy just wasn't listening to Steve.
Yeah.
But yeah, and this is honestly they may be phenomenal every other week, and this just happened to be the first week that I saw the picks that didn't go good this week.
Well, he had a plus on the top of the page, which means he's up for the year. I'd love to see that number updated at this point.
I mean, if we're going to compare, it's not like your DBC picks have been super stellar either lately.
Didn't we buy you dinner and you finished last year?
Yeah. And by the way, her picks aren't her picks, or she'd still suck.
What are you talking about? They are definitely my picks.
I forgot. Speaking of past What Idiots, this was one of yours coming out of, I think it was Chicago, talking about restart lineups.
Yep.
I don't know if you were watching yesterday when the 48 car, who's also in the playoff mix, by the way, comes off of turn 2, gets completely sideways, And for one, I'm not sure that it warranted a caution, but at the same time, I never fault them for throwing a caution in these situations because you don't know when your eyes hit it, and the guy could be dead sideways, and you're quick to the button or whatever. But the 48 car almost completely spins out. He gathers it up. He's going, I don't know, pace car speed. They're jammed up all over his bumper, and they're going by him 5 at a time on either side. So they put it out. The yellow comes out. And what happens next? The 48 drives back by all of those guys that just passed him, back up to where he was running when he got loose off of turn 2, and retained his spot and probably gained easily 10 positions.
A bunch of spots.
I don't understand what is so hard about at least having a cause of the caution car. You know what I mean? Like, this guy is the reason why we had a yellow. He's going to the back no matter what.
Right.
And then we can adjust off of there, who also was involved and who maintained speed. But there has to be there was a reason you threw the caution, and now you just gave this guy all of his spots back, plus the guys that checked up behind him, who were, that's big points for us. There was somebody we may have to race.
Guys like A.J. Allmendinger and guys that are on that bubble, man, they need those points. And I don't know what it's going to take for us to stop doing this because we listen, we're vocal when we have problems with race procedures on this show. We may be one of the most vocal shows out there that does this because we're obviously in the game. This is hard to swallow when you get screwed all like this.
Yeah, I don't understand. And I don't know that it feels like it's every week now or every other week when I don't remember ever really. It's come up in the past once or twice, but I feel like it's happening all the time now. Like, I don't understand. And I think having some conversations with people that are in that control tower, they know there's an issue, but there's not a clear path of what to do to make it right. You know what I mean?
It's really simple to make it right because in this scenario, when the caution comes out, what does every car in the field do?
Slow down.
They slow down. So when they've slowed down to the point that they're at the 48 speed, guess when he's back to maintaining race speed? Then.
Yeah.
He's not maintaining race speed when he's sliding sideways and guys are driving by him.
Or
he's not maintaining race speed when the yellow is out and guys are running 120 slowing down and he's running 50. That is not race pace.
Yeah,
it's not that hard.
Oh, it's not race pay. It's reasonable.
It is still
speed.
Reasonable speed within the race.
But it's just it's. I don't know the answer, but for some reason it continues to come up now. Seemingly every other week. We had Darlington was a big one. Obviously Chicago. You're never gonna. I don't know what the hell happened there. And then this one yesterday, where he's the sole reason for the caution. He's the one sideways. Guys are checking up behind him. I don't know if anybody ever got in the back of him or not, but he's the sole reason for the caution. And then he drives back by 10 guys. Like, I don't.
Maybe Mr.
I don't
H was in the booth.
Oh God, here we go.
I'm kidding. It's not that. But listen, they got to fix this. We cannot keep having these scenarios play out.
Let's move on to DBC picks. Okay, Freddie won DBC picks with Martin Truex Jr. I'm not going to lie. I thought I had it with Christopher, so.
Yeah,
you never had it.
Nobody had
You weren't even close.
Whatever. Let's move on to Pocono, and I will go first. I'll take.
That means you finished last.
Exactly.
Thought she was gonna win.
Okay, but
Finish
only
last.
because. I'm not going to go into this.
How do you finish last?
Well, he wrecked towards the end.
Being a bad teammate.
I am going to pick our new Bush guy, Ross Chastain.
Was
TJ. Who did TJ pick?
TJ picks Chase Elliott.
Chase Elliott
Oh, he's got a high percentage of
leading the lap.
It's my turn next.
Yeah.
Man, there's not many races left. We've only got 6 until it resets. I'm looking for a Toyota. A fast Toyota would be nice. Freddie, are you going to be worth this weekend?
Well, we've been decent there.
Well, where does Bubba rank this track? Like, does he like this track?
I wouldn't say it's one of his favorites. Remember, we went through the first turn wall here one time. I don't know if you recall that.
Yeah.
With no brakes. So
That wasn't his fault.
That probably lowered it.
His hit there and Bobby Labonte, if you YouTube Bobby Labonte's wreck back in Interstate Batteries car day, he backed one in. That ain't a place on the longest straightaway in NASCAR you want to hit the wall.
No.
I don't want to hit any wall.
Bubba learned his lesson, though, because when the same thing happened at Gateway, he hung her right and drove her straight in the fence.
And Daniel Suarez has got to have a good race here. He's got to pick it up. He's obviously the first guy out on the playoff bubble. Michael McDowell's hanging in there tough, man. He was having a good run yesterday. I thought it was interesting that he made the comment that, it may not be up to him what he does because he's been rumored to go in that 10 car.
Yeah.
And then he comes out publicly and says, they've got an option on me. And when they've got an option on you, they hold the cards. These owners hold the card most of the time. We know that they've got an owner option on Zane Smith, and doesn't sound like he's going anywhere. Yeah. So what does Todd Gilliland do? Is he the guy that's going to be a free agent?
He might be out.
Yeah. Man, I'm going to risk it. I kind of wanted to save him, but I damn sure wouldn't use him at a road course. Bubba Wallace.
Why not?
Well, I'm going to have to text him, though, and tell him to,
Tell him to step his game up. Yeah. I'll take Ryan Blaney.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So what can we expect heading to Pocono?
Hopefully it's
beautiful
dry.
weather.
Jesus.
70s. No Canadian fire smoke, which
no
we've
misting.
been experiencing here in Charlotte.
Has it been smoky here?
Dude, I went out yesterday to do long toss with Bodie. It was his first day back after being off a month with his arm in baseball. And, dude, pouring, soaking wet. It was, honestly, I was struggling to breathe. It was.
I don't know if that's got anything to do with the smoke.
That's true. Well, I was sweating more than normal. But no, Pocono is it's an interesting track. Obviously, 3 completely different corners. It used to be horsepower was king at this place. And you look at a guy like Doug Yates, man, he put a ton of effort into this race because he knew coming out of this race that he was going to Indianapolis, which we considered somewhat of a sister track. Long straightaways, you got to brake hard for the turn there to make it at the Brickyard, which you now no longer do because we run a road course. But now they're in the throttle so much in the corner. The corner speeds are almost freaking more important than the straightaway speeds.
Yeah, and this place is just, it lends itself to kind of drawn out races, and we don't see a lot of fuel mileage anymore. This is a place where you kind of crease back in. This is a place where we're going to see that road course style racing again, where guys are peeling off and pitting before the end of the stages because there's going to be cautions here. And that's going to be interesting to watch for these guys, especially, we talked about them earlier, Bubba, Suarez, McDowell.
They can't play into that strategy.
They can't play into that strategy. So what you're going to do is forfeit track position because you have to stay out and try to get points. Now, obviously, we'll know ahead of time, but you're going to see it with 3 to go in the stage. Coming to 3 to go, guys are going to start pulling off within a certain gap of the leader. And you're going to know whether or not you're going to get stage points. And if you can chase them, you're going to have to, especially for those 3 or 4 guys. And then there's going to be guys that are contending for the win, the Truexes, the Byrons that we talked about, the guys that are just going for, there may be, if you're leading, you may stay out and get that stage point. I mean, the playoff point is a big deal.
Especially stage 1.
Yeah. So, that'll be something fun to watch for this week. And talk about fun to watch. It's action-packed. Saturday for sure. You've got a truck race, a cup practice, cup qualifying, then an Xfinity race, all packed into one day there.
That's a lot of work for you.
Not really. I mean, I'm pushing a button. It's not like I've been standing up there for a long time, but I'm not really working very hard. But, yeah, so that'll be fun. Then, obviously, the cup race on Sunday. So, a lot of action this week. Hopefully, I've seen maybe a little bit of rain in the forecast Friday. Looks like pretty clear weekend, thank God. But you never know up there in Pocono. It seems like we always kind of get some kind of funky weather.
Remember one spotter or 2 spotter?
1, yeah. I tried that one year with the 2 spotter deal, and some guys still do it. They kind of put somebody down about half because we can't see turn 1. I tell this story all the time. Bubba came up there. Bubba was running Xfinity for Roush, and I was spotting for Biffle. And Bubba stood next to me for the start of the cup race. And we were both leaned down over the railing. And when I came back up, because you're leaned out as far as you can, and it's 40 guys looking at the back of 40 guys' heads, except for whoever was lucky enough to be the last guy in line. And Bubba looks at me and goes, "You're a liar." He's like, "You're what?" He's like, "You can't see down there." He's like, "What? You telling me yesterday I was clear?" He's like, "You're just lying." I was like, "Well, I mean, I was guessing." I was like, I wasn't really lying. So he's like, from that point on, he doesn't ever trust me any more into 1. So you can't see the entry to 1 good, but 2, 3 is fun.
That tunnel turn is scary.
Yeah, and you tell every year. I forget who it was. I think it was like Austin Hill when he first started running trucks. I was like, man, do not bust your ass in the tunnel on the first lap. I said, you will not believe how much faster you're going to be going down in there when you're packed up. I said, guys are going to be on your door. I said, just be careful of the tunnel turning. Guess what happened? We busted our ass the first lap.
Good listener.
Down the tunnel turn. Yeah, there was on his door and then whatever. But, you'll see that a lot, especially if they're side by side through there. It's a tricky triangle for a reason, and that's one of the corners there. But yeah, it'll be fun, and hopefully we have a good race, and I think we will.
Go to Woody's and have a drink for me, a beer or something.
I will go to.
What's that place on the lake I like so much? Something brewery.
I don't remember the name.
That really narrows it down.
They got music outside.
Yeah, we usually sit outside there. I don't remember the name of it though.
It's near Nick's. But anyway, I love that area, man. I grew to love it, and a lot of nice people up there, and have fun. I'll be watching.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We miss you, TJ. Can't wait to bug you next week.
Hang on a minute.
I also found his
TJ,
boat. I found his boat.
We
Look.
don't miss you. I hope
miss
you're
him.
getting better soon, but we don't miss you by any means.
Found his boat, guys.
You got his boat?
Yep.
Oh, that's good.
We'll save that for next week.
Save that for him.
Deal.
Appreciate y'all listening. We'll see y'all in a week.
Have a good one.
We out. Holla.
Word.